Have you ever wondered what happens when someone from your past sees you at your lowest moment? If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe. We'd love to hear where you're watching from, because we love hearing from you. The airport was loud. People dragged suitcases across shiny floors. Babies cried. Announcements blared from speakers overhead. Everyone seemed to be rushing somewhere important, somewhere better than here. But Amira sat perfectly still. She was pressed against a tall window near gate 12, her back against the cold glass. On either side of her, 2 children slept. The boy, Benny, had his head on her left shoulder. The girl, Io, leaned against her right side. They were both 9 years old, thin as reeds, with dark curls that fell across their foreheads. Their clothes were clean but worn, patched at the knees and elbows. Amira's eyes were open, but she wasn't really looking at anything. Her hands rested on each child's back, rising and falling with their breathing. She had been awake for 30 hours. Maybe more. Time had become fuzzy, like looking through dirty water. The flight had been delayed, then delayed again. 6 hours turned into 12. 12 turned into something that felt like forever. They had nowhere else to go. No hotel room, no relative's couch. Just a spot by the window, where at least the children could rest. Amira closed her eyes for a moment. Her head throbbed. Her stomach felt hollow and tight. The last meal had been yesterday morning. Crackers from a vending machine, split 3 ways. The coins had been her last. "It's okay, Mama," Io had whispered when her stomach growled too loud. "We're not that hungry." But Amira knew better. She had felt Benny's ribs when she hugged him that morning. She had seen how Io's jeans hung loose around her waist, held up by a belt pulled to its final hole. This wasn't supposed to be her life. 3 years ago, Amira had a job, a real job with steady pay. She worked for a family in Manhattan, in one of those buildings where doormen wore uniforms and elevators had mirrors on every wall. The Langston family. She cleaned their home, cooked their meals, and made sure everything sparkled. But that life ended the day Mrs. Meredith Langston pointed at her pearl necklace on the dresser and said, "It was right here, and now it's gone." Amira remembered standing in that bedroom, her hands shaking. "I didn't take anything, ma'am. I promise. I would never." But Meredith's face had been cold, her mouth a thin line. "You're the only one who comes in here. Pack your things. I want you out by tonight." No police were called. No investigation happened. Just an accusation, sharp as a blade, and Amira's world came crashing down. She lost her job. She lost her room in the staff quarters. She lost her references, which meant she couldn't get another job. Within a week, she and the twins were sleeping in a shelter. Within a month, they were sleeping in her car. Within 3 months, the car was gone too. Now they were here in this airport, waiting for a flight to Nairobi that might give them a chance to start over. Amira's cousin had wired just enough money for 3 tickets. Barely enough. Not enough for food or a place to stay while they waited. A shadow fell across them. Amira's eyes opened slowly. She saw expensive leather shoes first, polished and perfect. Then dark gray pants with a razor-sharp crease. Then a coat that probably cost more than she used to make in 6 months. Her gaze traveled up. The man standing there looked frozen, like someone had pressed pause on him. His mouth was slightly open. His eyes were wide. In one hand, he held a black briefcase. In the other, a phone. Amira's heart stopped. She knew that face, those eyes, that perfectly trimmed silver hair. Marcus Langston. He stared at her, then at Benny, then at Io. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. "Amira?" His voice came out rough, like he hadn't used it in a while. She said nothing. Her arms tightened around the children. Benny stirred but didn't wake. Io's breathing stayed steady and slow. Marcus took a small step back. He looked around as if checking whether anyone else was seeing this. The busy airport continued around them. No one noticed. No one cared. "What are you doing here?" he asked. Then he seemed to hear how that sounded. Is everything okay?" Amira almost laughed. Almost, but she was too tired, too empty. We're waiting for our flight, she said quietly. Her voice was flat, giving nothing away. Marcus looked at the children again. Really looked. He saw their thin arms, their worn clothes, the way they clung to their mother even in sleep. He saw the dark circles under Amira's eyes, the hollowness in her cheeks. "How long have you been here?" he asked. "Since yesterday morning." His jaw tightened. "Have you eaten?" Amira didn't answer. She just looked at him. 3 years ago, she had worked in his home. She had served his meals, washed his clothes, and kept his life running smoothly. And when his wife had accused her of theft, he had said nothing. He had stood in the hallway, silent as stone, while Meredith ordered her out. He had let it happen. Now here he was, standing in his expensive coat, asking if she had eaten. "I didn't know," Marcus said suddenly. The words tumbled out. "I didn't know things were this bad. Meredith said she gave you severance. She said she helped you find another position." Amira's laugh came out bitter and sharp. "She lied." The word hung in the air between them like smoke. Marcus's face crumpled. He looked older suddenly, smaller. "I should have asked. I should have checked. I believed her. I always believed her." "Yes," Amira said simply. "You did." Benny shifted against her shoulder, mumbling something in his sleep. Amira's hand moved automatically to smooth his hair, a gesture so tender it made Marcus look away. "These are your children?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Yes, they're beautiful." Amira said nothing. What was there to say? Yes, they were beautiful. They were everything, and she was failing them. Marcus stood there for a long moment, his briefcase hanging forgotten at his side. Around them, the airport buzzed and hummed. A voice announced a boarding call. Somewhere a child laughed. Finally, Marcus spoke. "Can I sit down?" Amira wanted to say no. She wanted to tell him to go away, to leave him alone, to take his guilt and his expensive shoes and disappear back into his perfect life. But she was so tired. "It's a free country," she said. Marcus sat down on the floor across from them, right there on the polished airport tile. His coat spread around him. His briefcase sat beside him. People walking by glanced down, confused to see a man in a $1,000 suit sitting on the ground. He didn't seem to notice. "Tell me," he said quietly. "Tell me what happened after you left." Amira looked at Marcus, sitting there on the airport floor in his expensive suit. She thought about staying quiet. She thought about telling him nothing. He didn't deserve her story. But maybe that was exactly why she should tell it. So he would know. So he would understand what his silence had cost. "It started 9 years ago," she began. Her voice was soft, but steady. "In Nairobi, I was working at a community clinic. We didn't have much. Old equipment, not enough medicine. But we helped people." Marcus leaned forward slightly, listening. One night, someone left a basket at the door. Inside were 2 babies. Tiny things. Couldn't have been more than 2 weeks old. They were wrapped in one thin blanket, both of them together. The boy was crying. The girl was too weak to cry. Amira's hand moved to Io's hair, fingers gentle. There was a note. It said their mother had died. It said she had no family. It said, "Please help them." The clinic couldn't keep them. We weren't set up for that. They told me to call the authorities, let them go into the system. But I looked at them, and I couldn't. So I took them home. Marcus's eyes widened. "You adopted them?" "Not officially. Not at first. I couldn't afford the legal fees. But I fed them. I kept them warm. I sang to them when they cried. I became their mother because they needed one, and I was there." She paused, remembering those early days. The fear, the joy, the impossible weight of keeping 2 babies alive on her clinic salary. "For 3 years, we made it work. Barely. I took extra shifts. I sold things I didn't need. We lived in a tiny apartment with a leaky roof, but it was ours. The twins were happy. They were loved." "Then what happened?" Marcus asked quietly. "The clinic closed. Not enough funding. I tried to find other work in Nairobi, but nothing paid enough. A friend told me about agencies that place workers overseas. Good families. Good money. enough to save for the twins' future. Amira's jaw tightened. That's how I found her family. Marcus flinched but said nothing. The agency made promises. They said the Langstons were kind people. They said I'd have my own room. They said the pay would be fair. They said I could bring my children. But when I arrived in New York, everything changed. Mrs. Langston took one look at Benny and Io and said no. She said she didn't want children running around her home. She said it wasn't what she agreed to. I tried to explain. I begged, but she wouldn't listen. So I found a neighbor, an older woman named Mrs. Chun, who agreed to watch them during my work hours. It cost almost half my salary, but what choice did I have? I couldn't send them back alone. I couldn't leave the job. We had nowhere else to go. Marcus's hands were clasped tight in his lap. His knuckles were white. Every morning, I'd wake up at 5. I'd get the twins ready, walk them to Mrs. Chen's apartment 4 blocks away, then rush to your building. I'd work all day, cleaning, cooking, making everything perfect. Then at 8 at night, I'd rush back to get Benny and Io, take them home, help with homework, make dinner, get them to bed. Then I'd collapse. I did that for 2 years. 2 years of barely seeing my children. 2 years of exhaustion. So deep, I sometimes forgot what day it was. But I did it because I thought it was temporary. I thought I was building something. I thought I was saving money for their future. Io stirred against Amira's side, mumbling something. Amira waited until she settled again before continuing. Your wife was not kind to me, she said simply. She never hit me, never screamed, but she had other ways. She'd point out dust I missed. She'd remake beds I'd just made. She'd leave notes about things I did wrong. Always watching, always judging. I took it because I needed the job. I smiled. I said, yes, ma'am. I worked harder. Marcus looked down at his hands. I didn't know. You were never there, Amira said. It wasn't angry. Just fact. You left early. You came home late. You lived in that huge apartment. But I don't think you ever really saw it. You definitely never saw me. He opened his mouth, then closed it. What could he say? She was right. Then came that Tuesday, the day everything ended. Amira's voice went flat, distant, like she was describing something that happened to someone else. Mrs. Langston called me into her bedroom. She was standing by her dresser. Her face was red. She was shaking. She pointed at the dresser and said her pearl necklace was missing, the one her mother gave her. I told her I hadn't seen it. I told her I'd just cleaned that morning, and it was there. I even offered to help look for it, but she just kept staring at me with these cold eyes. She said I was the only one who came in her room. She said the necklace was valuable. She said she was disappointed in me. Then she told me to pack my things and leave. I tried to defend myself. I tried to explain, but she wouldn't listen. She just stood there with her arms crossed, waiting for me to go. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. I remember that day. Do you? Amira's eyes were sharp now. Do you remember standing in the hallway? Do you remember me looking at you, asking you to please believe me? Do you remember what you did? Marcus's face was gray. I did nothing. Exactly. The word hit like a slap. You stood there silent. You let her send me away. You didn't ask questions. You didn't investigate. You didn't even look me in the eye. You just let it happen. I'm sorry, Marcus said, but the words felt small and useless. Sorry doesn't feed my children, Amira said. Sorry didn't pay rent when we got evicted from our apartment 3 weeks later. Sorry didn't keep us warm when we slept in my car that winter. Marcus looked sick. You slept in your car? For 4 months, until it broke down and I couldn't afford to fix it. Then we slept in shelters when we could get a bed, in subway stations when we couldn't. The twins missed school. They got sick. Benny had pneumonia. We went to a free clinic, and they gave us medicine, but he was so weak for months. Her voice cracked slightly, the first break in her armor. Do you know what it's like to watch your children go hungry? To see them shiver? To hear them tell you it's okay. They're not cold. They're not scared. When you can see that they are? Marcus shook his head. Tears were running down his face now. But Amira felt no satisfaction in it. I tried to find work, but without references, nobody would hire me. The agency wouldn't help because Mrs. Langston told them I was a thief. Every door closed. Every opportunity disappeared. We became invisible. I sold everything I had. My phone, my jewelry, my mother's ring, everything, just to buy food, just to survive one more day. Finally, my cousin in Nairobi sent money for tickets home. She said I could stay with her. She said we could start over. These tickets are our last chance. Our only chance. The story was done. Amira felt emptied out, like pouring water from a bucket. She looked at Marcus, this man who had so much power in her life and had used none of it to help her. 3 weeks after you fired me, Marcus said slowly, Meredith found her necklace. Amira went very still. What? It had fallen behind the dresser. It was there the whole time. She told me she found it. She laughed about it, said she felt a bit silly. But she never mentioned you. Never said anything about making a mistake. Something hot and sharp twisted in Amira's chest. You knew I didn't take it. I knew, Marcus admitted. And I did nothing. I told myself it was in the past. I told myself you'd probably found another job. I told myself so many lies. He looked at the twins sleeping peacefully against their mother. I took the easy way. I always took the easy way. Meredith made decisions and I just agreed. I didn't want conflict. I didn't want to deal with things. So I let other people pay the price for my comfort. Why are you telling me this now? Amira asked. Because you deserve the truth, Marcus said. Because I've been a coward. And because I want to make it right. Amira laughed, but there was no humor in it. Make it right? How? Can you give me back 2 years? Can you erase my children's memories of being hungry and scared? No, Marcus said. I can't, but I can help now. If you'll let me. Amira stared at Marcus. Help. The words sounded strange coming from him. 3 years ago, help would have meant everything. It would have meant keeping her job. It would have meant dignity. It would have meant her children never knew what hunger felt like. But now it felt like putting a bandage on a wound that had already scarred over. I don't need your help, she said quietly. Marcus nodded slowly. I know. You survived without me. You've kept your children safe against impossible odds. You're stronger than I could ever be. He paused. But you shouldn't have had to be that strong. Not alone. Not because of something I could have prevented. Benny shifted, his eyes fluttering open. He looked confused for a moment, then focused on the strange man sitting across from them. Mama? It's okay, baby, Amira said softly. Go back to sleep? But Benny was awake now. So was Io. They both sat up, rubbing their eyes. They looked at Marcus with the careful wariness of children who had learned not to trust easily. Who's that? Io whispered. Someone I used to work for, Amira said, a long time ago. Marcus looked at the twins, really looked at them, 9 years old. The same age his own daughter had been when Amira worked for them. But his daughter had never known cold or hunger. His daughter had never slept on an airport floor. Hello, he said gently. My name is Marcus. Io pressed closer to her mother. Benny just stared. Are you hungry? Marcus asked them. Both children looked at Amira, waiting for permission. She hesitated, then nodded once. Yes, Benny said quietly. We're hungry. Marcus stood up. His knees cracked from sitting on the floor. Wait here, please. Just give me 10 minutes. He walked away quickly, briefcase in hand. Amira watched him go, not sure if he'd come back. Part of her hoped he wouldn't. It would be simpler that way. But 10 minutes later, he returned. He was carrying bags. Lots of them. He set them down carefully. I wasn't sure what you liked, so I got different things. Inside were sandwiches, fruit, juice boxes, cookies, chips, more food than they could possibly eat in one sitting. The twins looked at their mother. Amira's throat was tight. She nodded. Benny and Io fell on the food like starving animals, because that's what they were. They ate fast, barely chewing. Amira had to remind them to slow down, to breathe. Marcus watched them eat. His face was broken, shattered into pieces. This was the cost of his silence. Right here, 2 children who ate like they might never see food again. When they finally slowed down, bellies full for the first time in days, Marcus spoke again. I need to tell you something else. About Meredith. Amira looked up from where she was wiping Io's face with a napkin. We're divorced. Have been for a year now. She left me for someone else. Someone richer, younger, more exciting. He laughed bitterly. Funny thing is, I felt betrayed. I felt hurt. It took me months to realize I've been betrayed by her for years. Her lies, her cruelty, her selfishness. I just never saw it because I never looked. Why are you telling me this? Amira asked, because you deserve better. You deserve someone to see the truth, and I failed you completely. Amira was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I appreciate you saying that. I do, but it doesn't change anything. We're still leaving. We're still going back to Nairobi. That's our life now. I understand, Marcus said. But before you go, will you let me do one thing? Just one thing to try to make up for even a small part of what I cost you. What thing? Marcus reached into his briefcase and pulled out his phone. He made a call. David? It's Marcus Langston. Yes, I know it's late. I need you to draft 2 documents. Trust documents. Yes, tonight. I'll email you the details in 5 minutes. Have them ready by morning. He hung up and looked at Amira. That was my lawyer. I'm setting up education trusts for Benny and Io. They'll cover school fees, books, uniforms, everything they need from now until they finish university. Both of them, wherever they choose to study. Amira's eyes went wide. You can't. I can. I already am. He pulled out his phone again and started typing. I'm also setting up a medical fund. Full health coverage for all 3 of you. Anything you need. Doctors, medicine, hospital stays. Everything. Why? Amira's voice broke. Why now? Marcus stopped typing. He looked at her with red, tired eyes. Because I can't take back what I did. I can't give you back those years. But I can make sure your children never suffer because of my cowardice again. I can make sure you don't have to choose between medicine and food, between school and rent. Tears were streaming down Amira's face now. She tried to wipe them away, but they kept coming. This doesn't make us even. I know, Marcus said. Nothing could make us even. This isn't about keeping score. This is about me finally doing what I should have done 3 years ago. Seeing you, believing you, helping you. Benny tugged on Amira's sleeve. Mama, why are you crying? Because sometimes, Amira said, her voice shaking, people surprise you, even when you think they never will. Marcus spent the next hour on his phone. He sent emails. He made calls. He transferred money. By the time he was done, Amira had a bank account with enough money to rent a real apartment in Nairobi, to buy furniture, to buy clothes for the twins, to breathe. The trust documents would be ready in the morning. He'd have them sent to her cousin's address. Everything was legal. Everything was secure. Everything was real. There's one more thing, Marcus said. He looked embarrassed now. Your flight. It's not for another 6 hours. There's a hotel right here in the airport. Let me get you a room. Please, let your children sleep in a real bed. Amira wanted to say no. She wanted to hold on to her pride, her independence, her anger. But she looked at Benny and Io, exhausted and full for the first time in days, and she couldn't. Okay, she whispered. Marcus booked the room. He walked them there personally, carrying Io when her legs got too tired. At the door, he stopped. I know you have no reason to forgive me, he said. I know I'll carry this guilt for the rest of my life. But I want you to know something. You are one of the strongest, most remarkable people I've ever met. Your children are lucky to have you. I hope someday they understand just how much you sacrifice for them. Amira looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something she never thought she'd do. She reached out and touched his arm. Just briefly. Just enough. Thank you, she said, for finally seeing us. Marcus nodded. His eyes were wet. I see you. I see all three of you, and I'm sorry it took so long." He turned to leave, then stopped. "If you ever need anything at all, you have my number now. Please use it." Then he was gone. Amira stood in the doorway of the hotel room. It was clean and warm and safe. There were 2 beds with white sheets. There was a bathroom with hot water. There was a window that looked out at the runway, where planes took off into the night sky. Benny and Io were already exploring, touching everything with wonder. They'd never stayed in a hotel before. "Mama, look, the bed is so soft." Benny called, "There's tiny soaps." Io said, holding them up like treasures. Amira smiled, really smiled. For the first time in 3 years, she felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness. Exactly. Not yet, but something like hope. She had been invisible for so long. Unseen, unheard, erased. But tonight, someone had finally looked at her and seen the truth. Someone had finally listened. Someone had finally helped, not because they had to, but because it was right. It wasn't enough to heal everything. It wasn't enough to erase the pain, but it was enough to start. Amira closed the door behind her and exhaled, a long, slow breath that carried 3 years of weight with it. Tomorrow, they would fly to Nairobi. They would start over, but this time with support, with security, with a future. Tonight, her children would sleep in a real bed, with full bellies, with warm blankets, with safety, and that was everything. If you enjoyed this story, please share, and subscribe. These stories matter because they remind us that it's never too late to do the right thing. It's never too late to see someone who's been invisible. It's never too late to help. Let us know where you're watching from, because we love hearing from you.